Everybody, it's Sunday. You know what that means? It's me, Bud Milford, back for another edition of Call to Action Live. And do not adjust your screens. You are not mistaken. I am joined tonight by the one, the only, the fantastic, the ethereal, the mystical, the beautiful Miss Danielle Ramirez. Danjoy, what's going on?
Hello, Billy. Hello, everyone. I'm super pumped to be here. I'm excited. Schmoedown, baby.
We must have a good show because you're on. We got some amazing guests on. Jake's in the background where he belongs again. You know, the show must be great.
It's nice to be back.
What the fuck?
Jake holding it down as usual. It's good to be back.
Doing great work as always. Jake and I hate the new StreamYard display. Anybody who does StreamYard will know what we're talking about. But yeah, tonight we have an amazing show. It's tournament season once again. I feel like this is the 5th tournament season we've had this year. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe so.
You know, I'll take it. It's totally fine. We have been bombarded with Schmoedown matches this season. Season 8 has delivered 4 matches a week at least. It's been nuts. So going into tournament season, it has been wild.
Yeah, and it really is living up to the moniker of war. There is a battle at the top of the standings right now between the faction that was been leading most of this entire year, the Dungeon, as expected. You know, it's the Dungeon. It's Kaiser. It's the boys. Bateman sucks, but the rest of them are amazing. And then the quirky Mercs have kind of like come out of nowhere to kind of assert some dominance and go up. And we had a battle this week pitting the two factions against each other, which we're definitely going to talk about because one of our guests, so the guest we're going to bring on right now, represented for the Dungeon, brought home the dub. Spoiler alert! We always spoil things.
Oh, spoilers! Also, by the way, for all of these this week's matches, if you're just in case, heads up.
Yeah, just in case you didn't know that he already dominated and brought home that dub. We are joined by the Spider, Robert Parker. Welcome to the show, sir. Yes. Woo, welcome back to the show.
Friend of the show.
Thank you for having me back. Yeah, it's been a while since I've been on this channel, but this was like always feels like going home. So thank you for having me.
Oh, always a pleasure to have you on, sir. Especially now that the tournament season of your domain has begun, the Inner Kingdom. My first question for you: do you feel slighted in any way that you were not part of that #1 contenders match a few weeks ago for the IG title?
The collision one?
Yes.
No, I was never really involved with that picture. That was more people who I was on a different path at the start of this season. Yes, I absolutely would have loved to be there and to play live and to play either Amaru or Saul. I think both of them are great players. So there was FOMO just as far as like the event. But like, oh, I should have been in that match too. Nah, not really. There were other people that I think if they were going to put somebody else in that title path, I think there were other people who deserved it more than me.
Okay. All right. You did have a big match to start the tournament. I think honestly, like for your faction, you maybe not being in the #1 contender spot might even end up being better because now you get to rack up tournament points and you got off to a good start.
Yeah, maybe we'll see how the faction points. It's always interesting to see how they work out, especially with the title matches being worth more this year. You know, that's how the Mercs caught up is with 3 people basically, and just title match after title match and defense after defense. Like that's how it's happened. So we'll see how if the tournaments sort of bring balance to that or not. We'll find out.
Yeah, the Inner Geekdom tournament especially, it's a little bit smaller than what the singles tournament is going into. With Star Wars already going into its 2nd tournament. IG, you got a little pool of players going in there, and I don't want to jump ahead too far, but your next match coming in, that's going to be a big hurdle to kind of jump over. We'll see how that goes, but before we get into that, Parker, I want to talk to you a little bit about this match and how do you feel going into the tournament season? Do you prep for tournament season differently than you do just regular IG plays, especially with this being your sophomore year? How are you feeling going into it?
Definitely prep differently. Partially just because I have different resources available to me. Like I have Mara there, I have Kaiser there, I have Bateman and Dan and Hoey and Wit and Molly. The crew is different this year than it was last year. Last year the dungeon, we all hung out in calls and we were very good friends and all that kind of stuff. But this year has felt even more intertwined, has felt even more like family. So the preparation definitely is different, and partially just because you play quicker. My first 3 matches this season, I played them like I want to say there was a month and a half, 2 months between each one, something like that, which is like a relatively long time. It's long enough to make you think that you have time after the match to slow down and decelerate, and then trick yourself, and then suddenly you're 3 weeks away from the match. Tournament season isn't like that. There's no telling when you're going to get the call to play, but it just happens quicker. Everything goes by quicker. You have to stay warm for a longer period of time. Like I said, it's sort of like the peaks and the valleys. After a match, you can sort of come down a little bit. You can't really do that as much in tournament season. You don't have as much time to cool off at the end of a race or anything like that. But I love tournament season also because you know the brackets, who you're going to play. You can prep if there is, in IG it's a little bit different, but if there is any prep, person to person that changes, you can sort of map that out a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. So you got Jesse Swift in round 1. What were your thoughts when you heard you're getting Jesse?
You can never underestimate anybody, no matter what, especially in IG, especially in a 3-round match, and especially when the margins of error this season have been smaller than ever. So you're never counting anybody out. You can't, or they're just gonna bite you in the ass and you're gonna lose. Jesse, I think, is a really good player. I wasn't super intimidated by him just because I had seen how he had just played against Jacob Wittenben from Suspects, and he didn't have a very good match that day, but everybody has bad days. So when I knew that he was the guy who works hard, I knew he cares, he gets it. He's one of those guys who just gets it. So I knew that he was going to be working hard. Are you guys hearing me okay? I'm having like a little bit of audio thing on my end. Okay. All right. Okay, cool. So I knew he was working hard, and it showed. I mean, he improved significantly. He played like very, very good. 8 in round 1. That was his best round 1 ever. It was his 8 in round 2, probably his best round 2 ever. And then just only missed his 5. So he improved a lot. And I was no, I think it was me. He's a really good player. He played very, really well. But I definitely was looking ahead, probably more than I should have been. And that's just because the guys who are playing below me on the bracket are both really scary. Oh, now I can't hear you.
I forgot that my mic was muted. My bad. There's not a lot of game tape for the people that you could be facing next. Ethan Irwin, Paul having 1 match in the Intergeekdom Intergeekdom division, but a very close match against Chance Ellison, and Ethan Irwin dipping his toes into the Intergeekdom play. If you had to choose one, Robert Parker, which one would you choose?
Man, I don't want to play either of them. And you said there's not a lot of game tape because there's not in IG specifically, but they're also both like singles champions and just know a crap ton about movies. Can I swear? I think I can swear. They just know a shit ton about movies. So no matter, even if they're not, even if they haven't gone back to rewatch Son of the Mask, like they still probably will know who directed it and like the main cast members. So anybody who has just really good knowledge is going to be intimidating no matter what. I think both of them bring different strengths to Intergeekdom. Paul's a good friend of mine. He's somebody I've known for years now. So I think I know him a little bit more. I think I would rather play Ethan. And that's because I think Paul is going to study a little bit more than Ethan might. Paul knows my game a little bit more. And Paul knows that I know his weaknesses, so he knows what to shore up. If I think Paul just thinks about the game a little bit differently than Ethan does. And Ethan, that's no slight to him. I think he's an incredible IG player, or incredible player in general, and could be a very, very good IG player. I just don't see him putting in quite as much work as Paul might. But I could be completely wrong, and Ethan Irwin could be watching Strange Magic right now. Who knows? I think they're both great players, and I'm not overlooking either of them. But I think I would rather play Ethan. But also, I want to play Paul because he's a good friend, and I want to beat him. Just a friendly rivalry kind of thing. But yeah, they're both great.
Yeah, especially both of you kind of coming from the fan leagues and stuff like that into your journeys into the Schmoedown. I think that it would be very fun to watch the two of you play each other inside of the Inner Geekdom division. But yeah, definitely Ethan Irwin and Paul Oyama both coming at the game very differently, but both total opponents when it comes to the game. So
and just different strengths too. Like we don't have any game tape on Ethan, so I don't really know what he would be good at, but just based on his age and his industry knowledge, like I imagine he probably knows the Alien and the Terminator movies like super well. Paul knows Harry Potter really well. I have no idea what Ethan knows about Lord of the Rings or Transformers. Like it's just
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is its own slice now. So.
Right, that should make anybody terrified. Not if they're playing Ethan, just in general, we should be like terrified that exists. But yeah.
Well, one person you won't have to face in the Inner Geekdom tournament this year is our other guest tonight. He also started his tournament season with a W, bringing home another big win for the Quirky Mercs. He is the current one half of the current team's champions. Is that how you say that? I don't know. He is Mr. William Bibbiani. Welcome to the show, sir.
Growl, everybody. Growl. It's a pleasure to see Robert Parker. I haven't actually seen you in person, I think, since the first draft we ever had.
And maybe my first tape day. I don't remember if you were. I think you were there that day. I
have been there that day.
It's been a while.
But regardless, it's been really incredible to see you really clean house this season. I'm a little disappointed that you won this week. But nevertheless, you're a wonderful competitor, and it's always a pleasure to see you work. And it's a pleasure to see you.
Right back at you, man. Very inspiring.
Thank you.
It's interesting that we have you both on because I feel like the start of both of your Schmoedown journeys were very similar. It was you came in, did very well, people got really behind you, and then all of a sudden you lost, and people just kind of did, as it happens in the Schmoedown sometimes, it went from you're amazing to I guess you're not good. So it's really good to see you both tonight.
Yeah.
Really see you both.
Thank you for reminding me of that. That's great.
I will say this.
There's always been recency bias. It's always like, what have you done for me lately?
Right, yeah.
But I will say this, and this is good advice for anybody, but Mr. Parker's right here. Stick-to-itiveness is a thing at the Schmoedown, and that's how you get one of these bad boys. Right here. If I don't show this off in every interview, Christian says he'll cut off my thumb. So I am very, very proud of this, and it's nice to have it here in my house. I wish I had like a shrine like some people do, but I don't. I can't afford that. I can't afford woodworking. So it's fine. But maybe I could afford woodworking if everyone bought some Salt Cat soaps. Yeah, you knew this was going to happen. Hey, everybody, head over to Salt Cat Soap over at Etsy. We just dropped a whole new line of soaps yesterday, actually. We got some really, really cool stuff right here. This is our citrine bar. This smells of like super orange. This is a really orange, gorgeous golden bar. I love this bar. We recently released the Sandy Mermaid soap. You can see right here, that is walnut shell. That is crushed walnut shell to create that sand effect, and they smell like coconut. They're amazing. Right now, what do we got here? This is our orange cedarwood hand soap. You can't quite see it there. It's nicely speckled.
Oh,
I like this one a lot.
This is amazing.
It does. This one smells really great. I'm actually not usually a fan of pina colada, but this is our new pina colada bar, and this is all I've been washing my hands with for like the last week. It's really amazing. And pumpkin spice season is starting early at Salt Cat Soap, and you can get our damn gourd coffee. Salt Cat Soap, inspired by David Lynch, and it smells just like pumpkin spice. It is incredible. I highly recommend it. So head on over to Salt Cat Soap over at Etsy, or follow us at Salt Cat Soap on Twitter. And now I'm done for a bit. I will be back with that, but please check it out. We've had really good reviews so far. I hope you enjoy them.
That's amazing. They look amazing. They seem like they smell amazing. Do you have a particular favorite one?
Ooh, of this new batch, I think this one actually really surprised me because I'm generally not a big fan of coconut. But what we did here, or rather what my partner Michelle did, was they spiked it with a little bit of cilantro, which actually adds a really nice edge to it. And really makes it smell just a little bit less like the average coconut bar. But if I had to pick, I'd probably say the Stam Gourd coffee. It's like washing your hands in pumpkin pie. It's
Nice.
so good, and it's a really professional, really classy soap. I really like this one a lot. So, but we have a lot of great stuff at the store, and and most of it was designed by Michelle. So.
Yeah. I gotta get one of those because I actually have been washing my hands in physical pumpkin pies recently.
There you go.
Right, this is good replacement.
I bet that's fun. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, it's a great time. Yeah, not quite as hygienic, I don't think, as using the soap.
No.
But...
Well, more hygienic than Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh goodness,
Burn.
That is a good burn.
Right.
So okay,
I don't get to do the burns very often.
I have no idea how to segue this back properly back into the Schmoedown, but I will do my best.
You know what we do in our podcast is when we have trouble like with a good segue, we just say the word segue.
Segue.
And now here we are.
Yeah, there it is. So to kind of tack on to what Billy was saying earlier, you both do kind of have a similar air when it comes to your personas inside of the Schmoedown. Robert Parker, you have a lot of hype behind you coming in as a big name rookie from the fan leagues. William Bibbiani, despite what some of the YouTube comments say, you are one of the greatest players inside of the Schmoedown and absolutely one of the best. So going into both of your round twos for this next match, it did seem like there was a lot of pressure going into it. Bibbs going in 2 behind, spinning second, but do you feel any pressure going second in a wheel round from behind?
Me? First off, I guess I didn't read those YouTube comments, so now I feel bad. But no, never read the comments.
Nor should you. Nor should you.
I will say this: Jacob London I think he's one of the rookies that we were all really excited about, and his first match against Jacoby Bancroft is, I think, one of the best rookie intro matches I've ever seen because they were both amazing. So I can't remember the last time. I guess it's happened twice this year. I guess I was behind at the end of round 1 when I faced Oyama, and I lost that match. And I was behind again when I faced Blunden. And you know what? Good for him. He's incredibly talented. And I thought to myself, well, that could just be the way this is going. But what I have learned in the Schmoedown is that it's literally never over. Sometimes the match can end, and then Matt Ashley will just jump in and say, "Hey!" And then you never know. So you just got to stay in it, and you can't let yourself get sidetracked by something not going your way. And ultimately, all that happened was I missed one question. Now, if you miss one question in round 1, it means you've kind of missed 2. If your opponent goes perfect, which is frustrating, but anything can happen in round 2 and a lot can happen in round 3. So that's something that's really, really helped in working with Koi. I think Koi really is the ideal manager for me because he understands that, I know what I know. No amount of managing will all of a sudden infuse me with trivia that I didn't already have in my brain. He's the one who's just really, really good at keeping me centered and making sure that I don't talk myself out of winning a game, which I have before I had a manager. I've probably done at least once or twice. I was just having a really bad day, really low self-esteem. I had maybe too much respect for my opponents, and I just thought to myself, oh, they deserve it more. And I just didn't push myself as hard as I could. And Koi prevents me from doing that. So all the credit should go to him for keeping my head in the game, or at the very least getting me to the place where I can do that anyway. I think, if for some reason Koi couldn't make it to one of my matches, I feel like in those manager segments, I would say to myself, what would Koi say? And I think that would help me out too.
You did have a nice steal at the end of his wheel round, which really gave you some momentum heading into that.
That was a rough question, that Twilight question. Hands up, who knew that Twilight question? Yeah, that was a rough one. August was my answer anyway. I was thinking to myself, what would I ask if we didn't go to multiple? And it was going to be August because I knew they got married right after high school. But I also knew that right after high school there was 2 movies, so there's a little bit of time in there, but not a lot. So I was thinking it can't possibly be July. There's no way you put on that big a wedding with less than a month. So it's got to be.
I love
August
the practical way that you get to this. This is incredible.
You got to think
I love it.
But like I was 90% sure August, and I thought to myself, if he guessed August, I would guess September, and it just worked out. But yeah, that's a really deep cut question. Technically it's a multiple choice, but it's like 1 out of 12, so like it's still really really hard.
Yeah, he had. I'm giving Jacob London a lot of credit. He had some tough YA questions. The first one, which was like a little bit of a softball, the Philip Seymour Hoffman question, which you get those in round 2. But then it was like, I was like, I don't even.
Well, I mean, this is something that happens, and I know it happens in Air Geekdom too, where the first couple of times a slice is spun, it tends to be a little more surfacey. There'll be might be a deep cut, but generally speaking, they're getting rid of the obvious questions, and then by like the fourth or fifth time it's spun, there aren't a lot of like really obvious questions left, and they're going to start getting harder and harder. And that's something that I think every competitor needs to think about when they decide what to put on the wheel, what to take, what to spin off from, what to give people for opponent's choice. And YA has been spun a few times now, and YA is an interesting category because for every hit movie that people have probably seen a couple of times or were very, very aware of the marketing for, there's a lot of failures. There's a lot of movies that didn't go anywhere and got really overlooked.
In like the 2010s too.
Mm-hmm.
Just more recently in the last 8 to 12 years, there were a whole ton.
There aren't a lot of people, I imagine, who could answer like even surfacey questions about something like The Darkest Minds, because that movie just came and went. Fifth Wave, yeah, exactly. A lot of these just came and went. Some of them were very good. Some of the ones that never went anywhere were actually good movies, and I enjoyed them. But that's still like they're in one ear, out the other, because the industry moved on so quickly from them. So yeah, it's harder to pick up on some of those. So that was a rough get for a second spin. What did he spin first that he spun away from? Was it 90s?
I thought he kept YA. I could be wrong.
He kept YA, but he kept YA. He spun 90s, and then he was like, it's too broad. And then he gambled, and he got that. And I spun movie release dates, and I was like, no. And because here's the thing, I've been studying movie release dates, as you can imagine, and because people know that it's something that I don't excel at, but I've done pretty well in the category lately. But it's such a huge category that even people who are notoriously good at it can have a really bad round. And I've noticed people like Ben Bateman is like notoriously good at movie release dates. He had a rough round this season. Like just anything is possible.
They also category. Really this season, they've also changed the way that they ask those types of questions. It's no longer what year did Kramer versus Kramer come out? A Best Picture winner, big.
It would be like, hey, what three Michael Douglas movies came out in 1985?
Right.
Like
it's Tom Hanks in 1988. Tom Hanks was in these 2 comedies. That's
a hard category, and that's
much more difficult. Right?
The thing with me for that category is it's also what I like to call like almost like supra knowledge. It's not so much you don't have to know the movie itself; you have to know the stuff surrounding the movie.
Yeah,
and that's kind of like the Oscars in that, but the Oscars is a bit more focused. But like it's not the movie's fault that it came out in 1989. It's not the movie's plot that it came out in 1995. So you have to know this additional thing and attach what is, in some respects, a somewhat arbitrary number to it, rather than remembering and connecting to the actual events of the film. And I find that to be something that can be tricky when you're just gotten in the headspace of, oh my God, who was the second lead in The Mortal Engines? Or, what was the code to the safe in Ocean's 11? Like that's the thing. It was 1138, by the way. But it's hard.
Do you think like covering movies almost makes it more difficult because you start hearing about movies like 3 years ago, and then you have to remember like, wait, when did that movie come out versus when did I start hearing about it, or like things get pushed back?
Yeah, that's not really my issue with it. My issue with it is if I was good at numbers, I probably wouldn't have been a film critic. Like, it's the deal. It's a different kind of headspace, I find. I feel like I just had to switch to a different side of my brain. Right. So like I do crossword puzzles. I don't do Sudoku puzzles. Like that's where my brain is at. I'm not great with numbers. So that's complicated. Sometimes there are complications of like when a movie was released in, for me, the bigger issue is when a movie was released in a festival and then doesn't get released theatrically until next year. That can be messy. That happened with like The Hurt Locker and a couple other major movies. So it can be really tricky.
That happens a lot with an Oscar season anyways. I mean, you might like people who get screeners or, critics or people who live in LA and New York might see a movie in November or December that the masses don't even have in a theater until February.
Yeah, exactly. Like they release them just really, really quick to get them out for Oscar consideration. But January is kind of a dead zone for most movies. So most movie studios just focus on widely releasing the movies getting Oscar buzz. So for everyone else, it feels like a January movie, but for us, it feels like a December movie. That's something that we were very careful of when we drafted the rule book to make sure there was a hard, fast rule about that.
Right.
And there's no rule that everyone's going to be super happy with, but the rule for you can see it in the rule book is Academy Award consideration year is the year that counts. So you have to know that, you have to focus on that, but still, like it's a lot, like literally any movie ever made, and on top of that, literally any year, and you have to know that it's not just one way. It's not just know what year the movie came out; it's know what year and what movies came out that year, and that's even if you're good at it, that's a lot. That's a lot. That's way broader than 1990s. That's way broader than that. So yeah, it's a trick. And I've done training and I've done well at that category in training, but you never know what you're going to get. You just never know. It's really, really, really broad.
Yeah. But you did spin away from that category. And
and I got Kevin Hart.
Oh, Kevin Hart, yes.
I got Kevin Hart.
You navigated very well, I felt.
Yeah, I actually felt pretty good. I mean, I like Kevin Hart as a performer. Some of his comedy hasn't always aged well, obviously, and we've had like a lot of controversy about that. But he's made some good movies. I've liked a lot of his movies. I've seen a lot of the movies of his that I didn't like. I think Get Hard is just awful.
I saw that movie twice in theaters.
Why?
I worked in that was when there was a couple year period where I worked at a movie theater, so I saw everything that came out. So I saw it by myself when it came out. Then my friends went and go see it. So I went.
Okay, all right. So there's a reason. I'm glad about that. No, it's fine. You like what you like. That's okay. But So look, I felt pretty comfortable about the category. Okay. I felt pretty comfortable about the category. I probably didn't have to go to multiple choice for the Think Like a Man question, but I figured if I picked the wrong Think Like a Man, Jacob London would get the other Think Like a Man because that was like the only other thing it could be. So I figured better safe than sorry on that. But yeah, it worked out.
Yeah. I mean, I think also it helped that you were in the lead at that point. So you knew that checking down to multiple choice wasn't going to hurt you.
I could be a little, especially after I'd gotten, I think I got the first two without multiple choice. And so I felt pretty comfortable. I'm 85% certain that he wrote the script to Night School, but better safe than sorry felt like the thing to go with. And at that point, there's no way, even if I got like the next two right, that I was going to have like this gigantic lead over him and we wouldn't have to get to our five. So all that mattered was that I had a little bit of a lead in the hopes that maybe he would miss his five before me, or whatever, or we could tie it. So like it just mattered at that point. If you have a 1 point lead, you might as well have a 4 point lead. It's when you have like a 6 point lead that it really matters. Yeah,
like Robert Parker had.
Yeah. Thank you for reminding us at the quirky marks. It's great. Yeah.
Which also on a really brutal question.
Yeah.
That was a brutal question. That was a brutal question. You think you're so big, don't you, Robert Parker? You think you're hot stuff.
Oh no. Bibbs, was this also the first time that we saw Nutso the squirrel on screen?
This is the first time that we saw Nutso the squirrel. I think Nutso might be around here somewhere. Hang on a second. Hey, Nutso. Nutso, are you here, buddy? Are you? You want to say hi to the nice people? Hello, folks. I'm Nutso the squirrel. I like New York in June. How about you?
I'm not gonna lie. I spent all of Jacob London's round trying to figure out what you were doing with your hands. I
had taken Fabian, the tiger, to the studio, and we ended up not using Fabian because there wasn't a place to keep props on the stage. So I accidentally Fabian got left in the car, and I was like, "Oh no, I'm about to get going. I don't have time to go get Fabian." So that was the birth of Nutso the squirrel. My mom got me Nutso the squirrel, so it was a nice little gift.
You're gonna have a whole menagerie by the end of the.
Kind of do actually. I have like a bunch of like weird little curios I've picked up over the time. I think in my horror match, I brought out my Jason bobblehead.
You gotta get like Merc stickers for all of them, like little pins or something.
That's not bad actually. I have.
Hat.
I wish they're never gonna waste any like Star Wars questions on an exhibition match that isn't for Star Wars. But if I ever do any Star Wars stuff or I get stuck with a Star Wars slice, I'm gonna just reach over and grab. Over in the other corner of this room, I have a bust of Jack Porkins, which is the only Star Wars merch I have because Jack actually means a lot to me. So poor guy. Just George Lucas created him to be a fat joke and then killed him. And here I am watching as a little chubby kid, and I'm going, well, I am not welcome here, am I, George? Thanks a lot, buddy.
I was in that same boat.
Yep, and then Jabba the Hutt comes along, and I'm like, great, George, are you working out some issues with larger people? Because we are not represented well. And then we only get another big guy in the prequels. And what is he? He owns a Greasy Spoon Diner. Great. Thanks. Thanks for that.
I think he lived at least, right?
Oh, he did live. He did live. And his cousin, to the best of my knowledge, is still alive. I think his cousin was in the Droids animated series. And there was a brief period where he owned R2-D2 and C-3PO, and they were serving food at his diner. And at one point, R2-D2 does the moonwalk on the jukebox. So that's fun. Droids is an interesting show. I actually quite like Droids. It's better than Ewoks as a show, anyway.
William Bibbiani going for the Star Wars division.
If they add the esoterica, I'm in. Okay, if they put droids in the Ewok movies and stuff like that, I feel very comfortable in my knowledge. But once you add stuff that's like canon, like the non like the comics. The films, but once you get to that stuff, I'm like, pass, hard pass.
Oh
my goodness. So you both are working with two different types of managers who have very different types of styles.
I don't think there could be two managers who are different, who are more different.
Who have both gone through a lot in these past couple of seasons throughout the Schmoedown. Kaiser has gone from bottom to top before, and the same thing with Koi, going from where the Mercs were earlier this season to where they are now. How do you all feel about working with your specific types of managers? I'm going to start with Robert Parker.
It's really good. I think it's weird to start with a manager at all in the first place, but I think it helps at least me that this is the second season I'm doing it, and you get to know them better. I don't know, it's different. Kaiser's style is very difficult to describe, especially right now because he's out of town. He's doing work stuff, so he's not as available as much. So we didn't know, is it going to be Whit? Is it going to be Kaiser? And Whit does an amazing job. I think Whit is Whit's an incredible manager too. But Kaiser's style of managing is just very direct. He is very good at playing the fool in some sense, like doing dumb comedic bits before the wheel round, just because you need a moment to breathe. He's a guy, those things are his strengths, and he does them very, very well. He's also really good at motivating you, which I think is maybe the biggest necessity as a manager. Like if you don't have the film knowledge and you don't know when to challenge and things like that, but making people care, uniting people and making them have passion for it. I mean, what more can you ask for from the leader? And he does that very, very well on and off screen.
Yeah. What about you, Bibbs, working with Koi?
Right now it's great. Because we're winning and stuff. That's pretty awesome. No, I love Koi. And I talked to a few managers before when we moved to this big faction system season and a half ago, and a couple people expressed interest, but it seemed pretty clear since Shazam did really well that we would get picked up in the first round, and there wouldn't be whoever got to us first got to us basically. And I'm glad it was Koi. Koi, we work really, really well together. And one of the things I love about Koi is that he knows how to adjust his managerial style to whichever player that he's got. And I've seen him work with every single person in the Mercs, and every single one of them needs something a little different. Even Shazam, like the way he works with me is different than the way he works with Brendan, is different from the way he works with us together. He knows when, to let us go to our own devices because we're all very motivated and working on our own. He knows when to step in. He knows, he can tell when we're getting in our own heads before we do, which is really, really nice. He's just a really, really good. I thrive on positive reinforcement. I can't do these like negative reinforcement type things, or even like positive reinforcement, but with an attitude. Like, I think I would like if you were just like, yeah, babes, you're gonna get in there, you're gonna destroy them, you're ahead of them, they're nothing to you, and I would be like, well, that's messed up. Now I want to lose. I feel like they deserve it more. Like that wouldn't work for me at all. So, Koi is a match made in heaven for me. And I really do attribute a vast amount of our success to working with Koi. And I think we've seen that it works. Every faction's had their ups and downs, but like we've had a rough start. And I think a lot of people had a rough start. I think especially in like Inner Geekdom, because they added all these new categories and stuff. Like Jesse Swift was the canary in the coal mine. It was basically just like no one's had time to study all these new categories. Most people only just found out about these new categories within a couple of weeks, and getting to the point where you're an expert at them at the Inner Geekdom level is nearly impossible in that amount of time. And yeah, so like there was a lot of people had a bit of a rocky start in that division, and you can see what happened. You can see how Jesse Swift has I think improved dramatically, and I think a big part of that is Jesse being incredibly committed, and I think he's a very, very good player. But a lot of it is also, I think, attributable to Koi.
Jesse also played the first Inner Geekdom match of the year, so you don't. Not only are there new categories, but you don't know how the questions change from season to season. You don't know what kind of information they're going to ask about.
There's no game tape on the opponents either. Right. It's just really, really hard. So yeah, I think that was actually a pretty solid match, and then you just got, and then unfortunately the way, because all the factions are so densely packed right now, if you lose a match, you don't get one for a while, and that sucks. And that it's harder, I think, in previous seasons. Players that would come in with a bit of heat would get a couple more opportunities to get themselves out of that funk before like tournament season. But like, yeah, it's just it's tricky. It's a tricky year.
Yep. So for especially with this season, both of you have played in studio and outside of studio. You both have worked with, I believe that you both have worked with your managers in studio and outside of studio in live events. Also with you, Bibbs. How does that dynamic differ, especially with being online, with everyone being able to view your conversations with your managers? How does that differ between being online versus in person with your managers? Bibbs, I'm going to start with you on that one.
Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting. On one hand, the biggest difference, and I actually it had been so long since we've been in studio, I'd kind of forgotten about this, because I never actually had like a lot of time with a manager in studio. The pacing is totally different. When in our team's match against Corruption, like previously, it's in like a digital, manager would talk, no one else can talk at the same time, then your manager talks and they're just waiting around, or you have to go and sit in a private room, and that's a little awkward, and you have to wait for everybody to be there, and then you have to wait for them to tell you to come back, and the pacing of it just is way longer. In a live match, all that stuff's happening simultaneously. So like, while they're giving the rules to round two, I'm talking to Koi, Shannon's talking to Corruption. All of that's happening at the same time, and you get to just keep your head in the game a little better, which is, I think, a major improvement. Regarding the stuff about, I know a lot of people were like really concerned because people be able to hear the conversations with their manager, and I think it's led to a lot of conversations that have gotten a little formulaic. And I think people talked about the whole first spin.
We prepared for this. We like to steal. We know it's.
Yeah.
If I can do that one more time,
exactly. And I feel like there's so much more opportunity in those moments because we have prepared for this. You should have. You should know what you're going to do. And I really like Koi. I think is really, really good at this. Like that whole bit with Andrew DiMolanta where they were talking about something that had nothing to do with the game, and they were just filling time, and it was really funny. I feel like we can see through it. I think you're not being that. I think the first couple of times people might be like, "Oh, interesting," but then after a while, that just became the norm, and people know that if you spin away from something, you don't want that thing.
Yeah.
It's that simple. It might, the degree to which you don't want it may or may not be obvious, but you clearly aren't happy with that slice. So once you spin away from it, it's as clear as anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, for us, one thing that we talked about, at least, and I can't speak for every single member of the Mercs because I said Koi works with everyone differently. But for us, Shazam, me, we don't hold anything back when we're talking with our manager because we have nothing to hide. Right. We feel very, very strong about the things that we know. And if there's anything we don't know, we're working on it. Even with stuff like, the betting round and stuff like that, it's not a huge surprise most of the time. It's really not. So, yeah, we play along with that. But honestly, we would, if we didn't have to, we'd probably just say, screw it, we're betting 3 or whatever like that. Who cares? Like, we're just going to do our best and make as much points as we have. And yeah, in my experience, people who care enough about the game to try to like decode what people are saying, they're going to decode it. So spending the extra energy trying to be coy, if you will, about it is the opposite of being actual coy, which is keep your head in the actual game and let's just talk about it openly and not try to like hide anything. I've seen so many teams that were like trying not to like reveal their process, and it just led to them not having a good conversation and then missing a question. It doesn't help.
Right.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I have enjoyed during the digital era is the process a lot of teams have with each other.
Yeah.
Some teams are very straightforward. It's like, we spun this, this is your strength. You answer the questions. If you don't know, maybe ask me. But some of the interactions we've seen, one of my favorite interactions was actually it was when Roka and JTE were teamed up, and we got to see JTE like know the answer but not know like the name of the person, and he'd be like, oh, it's that person from that thing, and then Roka, who didn't know the answer, was like, well, that's this person, and they would get the question right. Like,
exactly, that is good teamwork right there, because you're not working as like one person knows the answer and you're just checking in with the other person. You're actually working as like a hive mind. If you want to watch a great team for a great match for great teamwork, watch, and it's almost a shame that they broke up because I love them, but watch the blackjack match. They worked great together. Yes. That was a stellar. I mean, Janine and Snyder, if they stay, I don't know if they're gonna, but if they stay together, kudos, because that was an amazing pair up. But like Jacoby and Janine worked really, really well together, and that's the kind of thing that really makes a team more than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, definitely. As far as the manager thing, I don't have a lot to add, just because I only played one match in studio and I've never played, in a live event or anything like that. But hopefully at the end of this year, we'll see how this tournament goes. But basically exactly what Bibbs just said. Sometimes you don't want those conversations public, like especially when I was talking about the sort of, motivation, keep your head in the game stuff. Sometimes you need somebody to just pull you to the side and like say this person to person, one-on-one, and you don't need it broadcast, and it takes 10 seconds and not 60. And it's easier to confide, not even like about the trivia or about the game, just like about the mental state and all that kind of stuff, and head in the game, all that kind of stuff. Sometimes you don't want that broadcast, so you don't bring it up in a virtual match. And then you don't really get, the sort of reset button that you need. It's a little bit complicated, but I'm glad to see, like Bib said, the not every manager needs 60 seconds for every single thing. So I'm glad that's really sort of when we get more consistent in person. I'm looking forward to that all happening quicker, and at the same time, and that quicker pace, I think, is something I'm really looking forward to coming back.
Yeah, it was totally night and day, and I actually like the digital era. I mean, obviously, no one likes the fact that it had to exist. No one likes the plague, but like, I actually think the digital era is a little underrated, and we actually got some really interesting things out of it. A lot of players who might otherwise not have been able to play. A lot of behind the scenes looks at the way people interact, the way managers actually work. There's a lot of the stuff I think is actually really, really great. But yeah, I miss the speed, the efficiency of the in-studio match. That's the thing that I think is just, say what you will about all the other stuff, whether you like fast money or buzzers or whatever, the pacing of it's is totally different.
Yeah, Bibbs, you've been a part of helping create the rule book for the Schmoedown. Has there been anything in the digital era that has affected the overall rule book of the Schmoedown?
Yeah, we had to factor in things like when it was difficult to put things in the rule book that affected like timing, for example. Here's how long you have to wait for something to be considered a wrong answer, or for it to for timing to go out, or here's how long you can wait for a challenge. Because in the digital era, it's a little bit more complicated. There may be people who aren't on screen who are trying to signal you that they want a challenge, and you have to allow for a little bit more time for that, for example. Or, you have to make sure that you can't challenge after the next question has begun. But, that whole stuff got really, really complicated. And when we're back in studio, a lot of that won't be an issue anymore. So stuff like that. Again, the rule book is a living document. It was always intended to be a living document. I'm sure that, as time goes on, there will be adjustments made as we learn, because that's what happens. Over time, people figure out the flaws in something or how to exploit something that was written weird or whatever. And you can't always predict that stuff. We do our best. So I'm sure that there will be some adjustments made as time goes on, if not this season, then next or whatever. And it's only a matter of time before, there's a significant revision.
Yeah, I think it's people have this weird thing that they thought that the rule book was suddenly going to just make everything there's going to be no controversy ever.
Yeah, it would have been nice, wouldn't it?
We have sports that have 100 years worth of rule book that still have controversy all the time. What are we talking about?
Because you can't plan for every single eventuality. Yeah. You just can't. Right. Especially in something like art that is subjective, where terminology can be, a lot of things can be a semantics argument, a lot of things can be a timing argument. My voice went up at the end. Does that qualify as an answer, or was that a question? That's something that we've seen them sort of crack down on that. Like in my match, I think I asked in the form of a question real fast, and the question said, don't do that. Make sure it's clear that it's your answer. That's a fair point. Right. That's something that honestly I might, if we were doing the rule book today, I'd be probably need to make sure that people's answers are clear. Don't answer. If you ask in the form of a question, there will be a clarification or something.
Is it Steven Spielberg?
Yeah, exactly. If your voice goes up at the end, does that get that's kind of thing? So
I do feel
you can't predict that. You can't predict all those little things. So over time they present themselves. It's like chaos theory, Life finds a way, and the life of a challengeable answer is very, very powerful indeed.
Well, there it is.
And I mean, that's the other thing is you can't have a set in stone rule book that's going to have every situation. So you do have to have these kind of interpretive things, and people are going to interpret them differently, and that's kind of
you have to trust the judges, and that's why there's a rule in the rule book as of this season that wasn't before, that you can't. Once the judges have ruled, that's the end of that. You just have to trust the judges and move on. And if something doesn't get challenged, it can be challenged in another match. You can totally set new precedents at any time. So, there has to be some flexibility, but there also has to be, just at some point, the judges will make a call. And right. I know enough about sports, not a lot, but I know enough about sports to know that no matter what the call is, no matter what the situation is, there's always going to be someone who wishes the call went another way. Whether it's just because they're biased and they like their player, or because they just view it differently, you're always you can't agree with the judges or the referee or whatever a million % of the time. It doesn't work. But at some point they just and they called it. That's it. That's the end of that conversation. Done. There you go. Problem solved. Yeah.
One thing that as far as challenges, just real quick, and rules and stuff like that, one thing that has not happened as much this season that I'm very glad has started to been sort of a switch is just throwing out questions when a challenge happens. And just, we'll give them a new question. That hasn't happened as much, which I think is a good thing. I think in certain situations in the past, especially when the challenge rule was first implemented in was it 2017, I think, there was just, you know what? It's a big mess. There's a lot of controversy. You know what? Let's not make a ruling. Throw their hands up. New question. Strike it. Start again. And I'm glad that hasn't happened as much, because that should only happen when there is something actually wrong with the question or the way it's asked.
Right. Or in the case of the Frabetti Paramo match, that was one where Steele was on the table, but over the course of the challenge, the real. Well, I think that went either way, because either Paige said the full title correctly and that skewed it, or in that case, the challenge would have gone on so long that Jader would have had 3 minutes to think of it, and that's not fair to the game either. Right. So that's actually a good situation. She said it as well, but even if she hadn't, the challenge went on so long that he didn't have the time limit that she did, and that also wouldn't have been fair. So in that particular instance, that one worked as well. But generally speaking, yes, I agree. The question there should only be a new question if the question itself was the problem. And fortunately, that's happened maybe once this season, maybe twice.
Bateman's 5 against where it was the one where they asked it like it was 3 movies, but it was only 2 films.
Honestly, I kind of see your point there, but at the same time, I watched that match. I listened to it. For me, it was clear. But whatever, that's about subjectivity, isn't it?
Yeah.
But for me, the one that really stood out was, and I think they even admitted this one, was the Jesse Swiss Superman the movie question, where they said Superman the motion picture was right, and that one was simply it was written down wrong. They copped to it. Whoops, it's unfortunate. And we move on now, but it's very, very rare, and I do not want to call out the question writers because it's really been a vast improvement. I think this season in terms of the overall just bulletproof quality of the questions.
Yeah,
where they're just you're listening to them, and it's just like I have nothing to challenge. Every once in a while, you can challenge an answer that's a little wonky because they put it in a weird way. But yeah, the questions themselves have been rock solid this whole season, and really just kudos to PJ and everyone else who's writing. They're doing a great job, and I think they're really stepping up their game. And I'm liking that, and this is a matter of perception, but it feels like the questions are actually picking up in difficulty a little bit in the second half of the season. Which is good for tournament season. I think you want people to really feel, like they're really pushing as hard as they can.
Right.
It does feel like that's a theme towards it. Go for it, Billy. Go.
We did get a super chat in from Ben Rayner. He says, "Hey guys, just wanted to say great matches to Bibbs and Parker. Can't wait to see the upcoming matches." So thank you, Ben, for your super chat.
Super stoked.
Ben's a big supporter of the Schmoedown and Call to Action and everyone involved. A fun thing we did have this week was, I believe, the debut on the desk of PJ Campbell. Has PJ been on the desk before?
He'd been once, wasn't he?
I think he had before. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's good. I like having him there. He's really, really fun, and anyone who's behind the scenes in the Schmoedown knows just what a great guy he is. So it's nice. It's also just nice to see more variety on the desk in general. I love everyone who's already there, but just to see a new face, it's like, ooh, it's going to be a new one today.
Ken too. Yeah,
we got Ken back.
Yeah, Ken. Ken's great. Ken's wonderful on the mic. It was a pleasure to work with Ken.
Yeah, both of your matches had 2 people back on the desk, which are always great to see, like we all said.
Yeah.
Leo Logan said PJ called Clee/Brittany before. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Leo.
there you go. Yeah. That was a good match.
Leo is the resident Schmoedown historian. That guy is always on it when it comes to what happened when. They either know a lot or are the fastest Googler I've ever seen in my life.
There will come a day when we actually have a physical Hall of Fame or something, or a little mini Schmoedown museum, and we'll just hire Leo to be at the front desk and give tours.
It's like Ready Player One. He'll be the curator.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Yes,
there you go.
That was the geekiest way to put that. You're the one who updates the Schmoedown wiki.
Wow,
that's cool.
That's a mystery that I've honestly been wondering for about a year and a half.
I'm like, how can you still update it? It's great.
Answers.
I feel like I feel like some of the, I do actually. I'm always impressed by how quickly it's updated. Honestly,
yeah.
I'm like, oh snap, that's right there, isn't it? I don't know. I always feel like a part of me is just like, can we update my page a little? But maybe because Dan has this giant biography. It's this epic ballad of Dan Murrell, and for Bibbs, it's just and no offense, I'm just saying, I know it's a lot of work, but Bibbs is just Bibbs is a guy. He stands. I'm like, cool. That's fine. It is funny to me, just how Dan has this giant legend. He's just this epic, Norse god of a Schmoedown competitor, and then the rest of us are just here.
Dan Murrell.
He's the GOAT. He's the GOAT. No denying it at this point.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I think it has to do with the fact that a lot of people got into the Schmoedown because they were watch Dan on movie fights and stuff like that. So there already was the lore of Dan Murrell. He knows everything.
He does, and he does. Well, Pretty much. Like he's seriously, he's one of the toughest competitors in anything I've ever seen, let alone the Schmoedown. Like he's just
one of the most consistent.
Yeah, he's just that good. He never, I mean, yeah, everyone loses a match once in a while, but he never lets it get him down, and he always comes roaring back. And that's this level of commitment and consistency that you have to respect, even if maybe you like another player better. You have to respect Dan Murrell. And on top of it all, and this is the most frustrating thing for someone who actually has to play him, he's so nice. Like he's such a decent human being, and it's like you want to be mad at him when like he defeats you, but a part of you is just like, oh, he's okay. He deserves it. It's fine.
I think the other thing about like the mystery of Dan Murrell is there have been like 3 or 4 like pass the torch moments where people were like, oh, well, now someone has surpassed Dan, and he's always come back to them.
And then he beats them.
And
then he beats
always
them.
Come back. Always come back. It's just, he's like Stallone. Like Stallone, like it's like Rocky. Oh my God! And then you get that like that rhinestone staying alive era, but then he comes roaring back with the Rambo movies, and then it's tamps down again with like the Oscar, which I like by the way, but like a bunch of these other movies that don't make money, and then he comes roaring back with Cliffhanger, and then he comes back down again, and then he comes roaring back. It's always.
Are we in the Creed era of Dan Murrell now?
I think hey, that's a good era. Well, no, because Creed, he was like kind of passing the torch. I don't think he's passed the torch yet. I don't think he's there.
Are we in like Expendables? Where are we at?
I think we're in Expendables. I think that's the dungeon. The dungeon is the Expendables. You got this like super faction of like all of these like really amazing people. So like, yeah, I think that's you're at the Expendables era right now. So give him time. He's gonna get that
for better or worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to this race to the end between the quirky mercs and the dungeon.
It's all gonna come down to the tournaments. It's all gonna and the tournaments, anything can happen.
Spectacular. Yeah.
Anything can happen. You know, even a faction that is like pretty low in the rankings, if they make tournament runs, if they make the tournament run in like teams and singles and Star Wars, that could be the end of that.
What happened with Corruption last year. That's exactly what happened with them last year. They were in the middle of the road, but they were never in the lead, last year until the tournaments happened. And then Chance and Mike both on IG, and Collins and Chance went far in singles. And
that IG match ended up in a match between Chance and Mike. I mean, they just owned that, like all the points. Yeah. They got all the points you could possibly get for that. And, I don't think the way things are set up, that's likely to occur. I mean, maybe in singles, depending on how like the actual bracket ends up looking, because right now it's still a little in flux. But like theoretically, like, I don't know, like Dan could end up facing Bateman, or I could end up facing Horowitz or something like that. Any of these things could happen. But statistically, it's really unlikely, considering how giant that tournament is. So we'll see how it goes.
And how I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but also just how low the margin for error is in every division. Yeah. You really never know.
No, it's so tricky. You can play the best game of your life, and it could be a record-setting game, but the person you played got one more point. I mean, that's happened last year. Brendan got like the highest score anyone had ever had. He got a 28. Collins got a 29.
In sudden death,
That's an incredible match. That is one little thing goes a little different. The entire history of like the last year of the Schmoedown is completely rewritten. Corruption doesn't win the faction wars. The kid ends up being the player of the year, and like all these things. It's any little thing can change everything, and that's really exciting to watch. And a total nail biter, and I mean it. You can see my nails. Like you can total nail biter at home. Like it's really suspenseful.
I mean, we've had 2 50-150 matches this year.
I know. And we've had 3 101 matches.
That's right. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's been nuts. It's been wild. And you know what? As the Quirky Mercs, we're very proud of that. That's very, very cool. And honestly, I remember thinking, like, when we did because Diamante and Damon I think that's still the match of the year. I think that's just the match that's just completely unbeatable. And then when we got 101 points against the Otter couple, we were like, whoa. But the general consensus is that that's only possible in the digital era, because of the fast money round. There's no way you'll ever get 5150 in a studio. There's no way you'll ever crank it up to 101 points in the studio. First studio match back, boom. I
nailed
don't
it.
like bragging, but I'm so proud of that. Like everyone did amazing. Corruption pushed us to the limit. What an incredible team. Like it just, you had to have like the exact perfect lineup of circumstances for that even to be possible. And what an incredible match that was. I just love that.
And I loved all the little like subplots to that match because it was like Corruption trying to win back their belts.
Yep.
You guys tried to defend your belts. It was the perfect Mike match because Mike always in his championship matches starts slow and then
Was it the perfect Mike match? He got an IG category and only got 9 points. So.
Oh yeah. Did you know those? Did you know those questions, Parker? I bet you did. Yeah, of course you did. Yeah. Everyone in the I don't know if you can hear it in the actual video, but everyone's like, Bibbs knew something about a superhero movie, and I'm like, yeah. Yeah,
you've gotten in one of your first matches.
Yeah.
You got comic book movies. I thought
that's true. I did. That was my very first match.
Against Andreyko. Yeah.
Yeah, I only had to go down to multiple once, and even that, I was sort of like, I kind of know it, but like whatever. But like, yeah, I watch these. I like these movies just because I'm not on this bandwagon where I do all these podcasts or YouTube shows that are just about how much I love the MCU or something. I watch these movies.
It's not just
getting
the Harry Potter question right. Like that would be like the end of the world.
Right. That would be shocking if he like got a 5-pointer on Harry Potter and he just like did something like really super duper obscure. Like what brand of floating quill does Rita Skeeter use? And you'd be like, whoa. Like that would be pretty impressive.
You say that, but I know the answer to that question.
What is the answer to that question?
It's a quick quotes quill. I got that against Ace.
Oh, did that actually come up? I forgot that came up. Okay.
Yeah, it was in Ace's round 2.
Okay.
Well, that's like a 5-point question in IG. That's how tough the IG division is now. Like,
yeah, no, that's the thing. And like, I've had a lot of people ask after that championship match, like, Bibbs, do you think you'll ever go to Intergeekdom? And the answer is no. For 2 reasons. One, I have to spend so much time watching other stuff that I can't dedicate myself to the same like 100 movies every week the way you kind of have to stay competitive in that category.
This year with the new category is like
it's even more, but
190 plus. Yeah,
exactly. I do not have the time to just dedicate myself to those movies. I'm a professional critic. I have to watch everything, and that's just not feasible. So, on that note, which leads me to my second thing, like I can compete in round 1. If the wheel goes my way, I could do well in round 2. The 3s and the 5s. Maybe I get one once in a while, but I watch these matches, and most of the time I'm like, nope. I don't know how you know that.
You don't want to go back and rewatch Aliens versus Predator Requiem?
I have gone back and rewatched Alien versus Predator Requiem. It's a massive turd.
It sure is.
It's a very bad movie. It is one of the most dimly lit motion pictures I've ever seen in my life. You can't see anything.
You cannot see it. I think amazing. The lighting department was on strike.
It was.
They must have been.
Yeah. I actually championed. I thought Alien vs Predator would be a good category. I stand by that. And I stand by. No, I meant like the category.
The category.
Right, I thought that was a good idea for a category, and I stand by that. But man, with any one of these, there's always going to be a couple of movies where I kind of feel bad for the Intergeekdom people. Like Barker, how many times have you seen Son of the Mask?
Twice. Not that many.
Too many. That's too many times. I've seen that movie once, and it's hell. It's
pretty bad.
Sometimes you watch a movie and you're like,
it's not in the bottom 10 Intergeekdom movies. Sorry, continue.
It's not. Oh my god!
I don't think so.
What is the bottom? Give me some of the films that would be in the bottom 10.
I gotta look at the list. Give me a second.
Green Lantern. That's always everyone's go-to.
It's bad, but it's not like epically bad. It's just
probably in the bottom 50.
It's just studio notes 10. Bad. It's just
funny
they didn't know what they're doing.
Parker was talking about working in a movie theater. I was working in a movie theater when Son of the Mask came out, and I had to watch 3 prints of it because they sent us an extra print on accident.
Oh.
So I've seen that movie 3 times, and it is awful.
It's so bad.
All right. So this is not in order or anything. This is just
no. I'm just curious on which
Catwoman, Elektra, The Spirit, Pirates 4, Men in Black 2.
Oh yeah, that movie.
All of the Transformers movies,
even Bumblebee,
the animated one, and Bumblebee. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, fine.
How about the Mark Wahlberg?
Apes 01. Yep.
Yeah, that's
Apes 01. Blade Trinity. AVP Requiem.
It's funny because Blade Trinity is a really bad movie that I somehow just had fun watching because it's just.
Oh well, I'm happy for you.
Yeah, I think I'm like
Red Sonja.
Yeah. Oh, come on. Red Sonja's camp. Red Sonja's fun. And fun fact, technically first Marvel movie.
That's
Technically,
true.
Because
it's
it was
based on the Marvel version of the character. It's not based on Robert E. Howard's version. They
Yeah.
just didn't credit it. They only like thanked them in the credits. So technically, that beat Howard the Duck.
That's
it was
crazy.
close, yeah, but yeah.
First Marvel movies.
I will say this: I think Catwoman is fun. I think it's cheesy, but I have a good time watching Catwoman.
Polar.
Which one?
Did you
Polar.
like- did you
That one I haven't seen actually.
Oof.
Is it that bad?
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Which one
Okay.
was it?
That Liam
Polar.
Neeson movie, or is that
Mads Mikkelsen.
Mads Mikkelsen, the other Liam Neeson.
Also,
No,
anything with
yeah.
Ed Harris in it is terrible, since PLD's in the chat. So anything with
Oh,
Ed
no.
Harris,
Yeah,
Oh,
History
yeah.
of Violence.
terrible movie.
Yeah,
that's
it was rough, actually.
very little history in that movie. I learned very little history in that movie.
I like that we get the expanded categories with the graphic novels, and immediately it's like Ed Harris questions. It's like, what did Paul do? Did he like bribe somebody? What do you know about
It's true. One of the
PJ?
first IG 5-pointers of this season in that first match was an Ed Harris 5-pointer.
Yeah, and honestly, I didn't know that one. I saw
Really?
Snowpiercer. I saw Snowpiercer,
Oh.
and in my head, that was William Hurt.
Yeah.
In my head, that was
Oh,
William Hurt.
sure.
Because they play the same type of characters sometimes. So like, it
Yeah.
totally could have been William Hurt. In my head, it was William Hurt. I was wrong about that. I don't know if I would have gotten that wrong on the day, but when I was watching it, I'm like, is that William Hurt? No. Whoops.
A question that I always like to ask Schmoedown competitors is: has the Schmoedown influenced the way you watch movies? Just in the sense of like, as you're watching a movie, do you go, "That's a 5-pointer. That's a 3-pointer"?
It does. It does. It's not. It doesn't take up a lot of mental energy, but especially when I'm rewatching things, I'm thinking, or like when I'm like, because oftentimes in my line of work, I have to look things up on IMDb to make sure I get like, I give the director's correct name spelling or something like that, and I'm thinking to myself, oh wait, what was the first thing Emily Blunt was in? Okay, good to know that. Or like, you're just thinking about like, all right, what's the name of this magazine that they're working at? That could be important. Oh, interesting. Okay, mental note. Boom.
Kind
You
of.
try. I think if you study how they write questions, it's easier to watch the movies and pick up on what might be important.
I would say it doesn't as much for me unless I'm watching an IG movie because I don't play in singles and teams. So I can watch a movie that's not like if I'm watching an IG movie, I feel bad if I don't have my laptop in front of me, taking notes, writing, like working basically while I'm watching the movie, if it's an IG movie. But when I'm watching something else, like I can just turn it on and watch it like a normal movie. Like I have been watching I've been just watching some random stuff. So like I watched 40-Year-Old Virgin for the first time. So I just threw it on and it's like, I'm not memorizing the name of the company that they work at and each team member's position. Like I just don't care when I'm watching a movie that's not an IG.
And it's different because in singles, literally everything is on the table. But also for me, it's not that bad because like I've been like not just watching movies, but like studying movies since I was like 10. Yeah. Like I was actually like every movie I watched, I was trying to like pay attention to it, learn from it, learn the cast. I've said this before, but this is true. I remember when IMDb first came out in the internet era, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, there's this new thing called Internet Movie Database, and they have all the casts and all the directors." And the internet was new, so who knew how long that was going to last? And I remember sitting down. It's like I better memorize this while it's still here, because it might go away. And so I was literally just trying to memorize IMDb for like a few months, and I did pretty good. But it's now I realize it's probably not going away anytime soon. And even if it does, at least we have Wikipedia.
It's like the Beast origin story.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah, back in those like Wild West internet days, there were actually like competitors to IMDb. They're like other alternative sites that just fell off and never either didn't get updated or didn't get.
And the ones that lasted are the ones that focused, like Box Office Mojo, that kind of thing, where they focus on the box office. And there was like then, and now they suck, and it's hardly worth even navigating them. And frankly, that's starting to become true for IMDb as well, which is really frustrating. But it's like at some level, we just give us the information.
Right.
That's it. We don't care about all these thumbnails. We don't care about I don't know why you're hiding the trivia page. Just put them right there. No one's going to your site to marvel at your site design. We just want the information clearly conveyed. That's it. That's all I'm asking for. That's all I want.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's Well, it's just you and I now.
Oh no! Hey, Danielle's back.
Oh,
That's
man,
great.
thank goodness. Whew.
Sorry, I had to let my cat out. She got off the bed and she wanted to leave, and
A pain I know all too well.
Cat's
my
out
goodness.
of the bag, huh?
she's a feisty one. That one. Yay!
Yeah, I feel bad. I don't want to talk without Robert here. I feel like that'd be inappropriate.
Well, since you're here, we did have your team partner on recently, which he was fantastic.
Of course.
He also coined a phrase that I've not been the biggest necessary supporter of any faction, but I kind of want the Mercs to win because he coined the phrase "from -1 to #1."
Oh yeah,
we've
been saying that. We've been saying that behind the scenes, and yeah, we're very proud of that. Everyone's always quick to write off anyone who's having trouble. You have a bad match, or you start off awkward in the faction wars, and I don't understand that at all. It's like you support the people and they're trying really, really hard, and that, and we've seen it already. Anything can happen. We already talked about, like, corruption was not in the best spot at the beginning of last season, and then look what happened. So yeah, never assume that, like, oh, Mercs are at -1. Well, that's it for them. No. Like, give us
at that time, definitely, like, when that happened. I mean, we were 3 weeks into the season.
Yeah, nonsense.
But I think now, and once we get, like, towards the middle of the turns, I would say the next, like, month or two. I never, like, wanting to write people off or anything like that. But once, like, a month from now, I think we'll be able to confidently say, just by the numbers, and how many matches are left and who is still in the tournaments.
There hits a point where it becomes mathematically impossible for, like, maybe someone to win, but at this point, literally anything could happen. So who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I mean, tournament season is crazy. Things happen in tournament season.
Yes, they do.
Things happen in tournament season. Billy Belford, 2020.
I want that on a shirt.
Speaking of shirts, I love the fact that you were both wearing free-for-all shirts, you and Jacob London.
Oh yeah. Those were
So
designed by Taylor Robinson. Those are not for sale, unfortunately, but they are very cool. And Taylor made one for Jacob, and they showed it off, and I was like, that is the coolest thing ever. And I'm like, I wish I had one of those. And Taylor was very kind and sent me a Photoshop file that I could then take to a local t-shirt place and make up. And we just thought it'd be funny to play it up in the match, because those shirts were cool. Those shirts
that was amazing. That's very cool. Big shout out to Taylor for that. Oh, I love that. And very bummed that I can't buy either of those.
I know.
But I can get a 5150 shirt.
I am looking forward to that. Is that available yet? I don't think it is yet.
I'm not sure if it's available. I do believe that I did see the confirmation on Twitter from the one Christian Harloff himself.
It was confirmed.
I will be extremely disappointed if it is not available anytime soon. I would love to have that shirt, because I do not have any t-shirts for the Beast, William Bibbiani. So I need one.
I had a few, and then they just, they cycled out. I had like a couple of shirts that were made after that Free for All 3.
I think I have the "I'm Still Standing" shirt somewhere.
Thank you. I wear that. I still wear that sometimes, and I actually have. Was this short-lived? I actually have a Growling Commandos shirt. Was that almost a thing for like half a second, right? That didn't quite happen. And then I also there's also a shirt that was the original Four Horsemen, which is actually a very cool looking shirt. That like had these awesome caricatures of each of us, and like that was
what a great time in the Schmoedown when William Bibbiani was a part of the Four Horsemen.
So long ago.
It really truly does.
It kind of was, actually.
I remember doing reaction videos for that era.
Wow.
That was 2017. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, also, like, COVID has completely like ruined my like frame of reference for like how long ago anything was. So like,
It's like, everything was so different then. Still, I was still in this room. I don't know. Like every day is Bo Burnham's inside,
Yeah. Well, I had a theme song of "Every Day Feels Like Saturday When You Don't Have a Job." It was good times.
Yeah. But Bibbs, you did get the opportunity to go back into a live event, a big live event, That was very nice to see. Again, spoilers for that. If you have not seen that, that entire match was extremely wonderful to watch. It was great to see both of you all, big teams, Shazam and Corruption, big teams in the teams division, big powerhouses inside of each of their factions. You all being part of the Quirky Mercs, them being part of Corruption. That was a battle, good sir. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And to have the energy of the crowd behind you, how was that going back into a live event like that?
That was nice. People talk about like, oh, is there going to be different going into the crowds? And it's like, I mean, it's a little, the energy is different, but I grew up like in doing theater. The kid is a performer as well, so we were both very comfortable in that environment. And once we're on stage, we're just locked in. It's just me and him up there, and then like there's Corruption as well, but like it's just our little bubble there. That's it. That's all there is. So that's all we really needed to focus on was that. It's nice to hear the cheers. It's nice to hear the gasps, and all of that stuff is wonderful. So yeah, it's great, and I'm glad we're doing it, and I want to do it again. But like, yeah, it's not like everyone had this idea. I heard some people talking about like, oh yeah, Shazam's greatest successes were like in the digital era, and will they be able to do it in live era? And I'm like, we won our first
tournament in 2019.
Yeah, we've won every studio match we've ever done. We haven't won every live match we've ever done, but we've won every studio match we've ever done. And so I feel like we're fine. Like that was not our concern. Our concern was to just not get so distracted by the cacophony around us, by all the cameras, by all of the the little technical things that were happening, and the natural delays that happen anytime you film anything, and just try to stay focused on the game and focused on Corruption, because that was the thing that I think got in the way of our match with the Founding Fathers. It was a big day, there was the fan expo, and I let my energy sort of dissipate across a variety of things, and I think that was a killer for me, and I think that really hurt me. So that was a lesson we learned. We just have to like try to stay in our bubble and just try to stay focused on each other and our own game, and make sure that's our top priority, nothing else.
Yeah, I think also like Schmoedown fans will like to dissect every little thing and find any sort of reason to question the ability of people in the Schmoedown, and it's like, oh, they've never won with buzzers, so that's clearly their weakness or something like that.
We have won with buzzers, actually. We beat the family with buzzers. But like regardless, there's always something. I saw someone online and they were just like, sure, Shazam is like, what are we, 11-2 now? Sure, Shazam is 11-2, but I don't know, man. That too. And I'm like, hey, what? It was a long time. We did really well.
Nobody was perfect anymore. Like nobody
not for long.
doesn't. Yeah.
It's momentum is just the thing that happens before someone stops you. That's it. It lasts a little while. It lasts a long time, but there's no one is an unstoppable force, or if they are, they're going to be an immovable object.
Right. There are zero people who play at the top level who haven't lost.
And again, anyone who's like, even look at someone like Harper, give him time.
Yeah,
that's I think Diamalante's going to beat him. Right. I think Diamalante's good, but I think Diamalante's going to beat him. But no matter what happens, it's only a matter of time. The competition is too good in that division. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing now, and that's the thing also with the Schmoedown. I feel like, especially in Star Wars, the competition is ridiculous. I mean, IG as well to an extent, and then even like top level teams and singles, like you make a mistake and you're like, well, I guess I lost this match. Like, whereas kind of in the old days, you're like, oh, I got a 7, I'll be all right. Like
look at the Otter couple, they missed one, like one question each in round 1, and like went down to multiple choice. That's another one where like they got, or at least like I think they tied or even beat like the top scoring teams championship match ever, and the only way we could beat them was by going perfect. Like that's it. If we didn't go perfect, that's it for us. Like that's absurd. That's such a high level to compete at, and we're at the point now where like you can like lose something like this and still be incredibly impressive. And that's why, as important as wins are and championships are, that's not as a player. That's not the only thing I look at. I look at like not their wins, I look at their gameplay, because there are some of the best competitors in this game who they hit some bad luck. That's it. That's all it can possibly be called, because they are geniuses, and anytime you face them, you're like, uh-oh, that's not good. So yeah, you got to keep your eyes open, because you never know.
Yep. Well, guys, okay, so really quickly, Robert Parker, looking at the Inner Geekdom tournament and all of that good stuff, on the right side of the bracket, you got Chance Ellison from Corruption, Mose Haas from the Finstock Exchange, Saul from the Den, and Brandon Hanna from the Stars. If you had the opportunity to go into this tourney season facing one of those four, who are you looking at the most?
I think probably Chance.
Yeah.
And I don't want to look past my next match, because whoever comes out of Erwin Oyama is going to be dangerous. But if I make it to the finals, I think probably Chance, mainly because we're 1-1 against each other. He knocked me out of the tournament last year. I beat him pre-tournament this year. I think meeting in the tournament finals would be a sort of I could thread a poetic story, if you would, for our rivalry in IG. Yeah, and I think that's partly why we don't obviously use seedings as far as like specific numbers and stuff like that, but I think that's probably why I believe I was probably seeded above him. Is he may have, I think, more wins than I did, but I had the 1-on-1 win this season. So, but yeah, I think probably Chance. I think having a rubber match between the two of us would be really, really great. Last time we played, it was a great match. He just missed his 5. And then miss one in round 1. And like Bib said, if you miss one in round 1, your opponent goes perfect. You basically are now 2 points down, and it seems like an even higher hill to climb, especially when the competition is so stiff. But also all 4 of them are great. I think Hannah is hungry. I know Hannah is very hungry to beat Saul. I know Saul wants to prove that the collision match was a fluke. Haas has been a very impressive rookie who just had a bad bout his last time out against Amaru. All 4 are great players.
I really think Hannah is underrated. I do. I know he's another one whose record is spotty, and he's had a couple of rough matches, but I know how hard he works, and I know that I think it's only a matter of time, if he sticks with the game, that he has a revival, a Hananaissance, if you will.
I'm also interested to see how he does with having time with the new categories now. Him and I played pretty early on in the season.
Exactly.
And he just, I don't think really had dove in. He'd gone into the new categories as much as I had at that point in time.
How was it in Inner Geekdom? Because you played last season, and last season we didn't have the new categories. But last season it was still the thing where it's like it's pretty much the same 10 categories every single time. Everything that's always going to be on the wheel. Yeah. How is it now to know that you can like really bust your butt and learn everything you possibly can about the swashbucklers, and then you get there and it's not on the wheel?
It's interesting. I wish we could request categories now, because there's there's 10 slices on the wheel, I think, plus spinners and opponents. Yeah. And there's
about 21 categories thing now?
Right about 20, IG category. It depends if you want to include stuff like, quotes and scores and soundtracks, stuff like that. Yeah. But yeah, there's somewhere between 15 and 22 IG categories. So, I wish we could suggest stuff, because then that would never happen. But also, if you bust your butt and learn everything there is to know about swashbuckling, it's still a 10 out of 20 whatever chance that you're going to get a swashbuckling question in round 1.
Or round 3.
Or round 3, right. Yeah. Right, and you might get it your next match, it'll be on the wheel or something like that. Yeah. It's interesting to see the wheel composition this year.
It's a little different, I think, than singles and teams, just because you have fewer categories, but in a way that almost makes it harder in some regards. Because it's really interesting.
Smets, as far as the difference between categories, Smets is really fond of saying, or he always said that singles and teams are harder, but Inner Geekdom is more work. And I don't know if that's necessarily true anymore. But I think at the time, I think it was a little bit true. I think it was more true at the time because there were fewer IG movies. Now, I don't know if it's necessarily as true. But yeah.
Well, you have to go so much deeper consistently, like with every single movie you watch. Whereas in singles and teams, there might be some more surface stuff generally, and you can kind of skate by if you're lucky.
Yeah, well, I think also, there have been multiple, I can think of 3 off the top of my head, 5-pointers in IG this year that were just the second or third build cast person. So it's not like you have to go that much deeper. The Etta Harris question, the Mara's 5 against Mike, Chance's 5 against me. Those are all cast questions. So I wish it would go even right.
Yeah, you want the 5 to be absurd.
I want the 5 to be the.
You want to be dummy and you. You want that?
No. I want them to be the difficulty that your 2-pointers were against. Those were harder than some of the IG5s this year. From the corruption match.
Well, I think also because especially in Star Wars and IG, as it's gotten so high level, the concept of what is a 5-pointer or a 3-pointer, a 2-pointer. Is it blurs so much because one man's 5 is another man's 1, especially in IG and Star Wars.
I've run into this problem a lot, when I'm training with Dimalanta and I'm trying to come up with questions maybe that he doesn't know the answer to, or maybe that they haven't asked in the show before, and that's really hard now. And what I found is that sometimes I think to myself, there's no way he knows this, and he's gonna be like, yeah, it's a 2. And I'm like, what? How is that a 2? And it's just everyone knows that. I'm like, how is this a thing? It's amazing. I mean, part of that's just him being a genius and him constant studying, and he knows that series better than anyone on the planet. But at the same time, it's just I would look at that as this incredibly esoteric detail, and to him, it's I don't even need to study to know that. I'm yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, Star Wars is a different beast.
It truly is 100%. So, Bibbiani, on the singles part of that for the tournament, I do not believe that we've seen a full bracket for the singles tournament, but for the names that have been released, if there is anyone that you're looking forward to playing against the most, is there anyone that you want to challenge that you have not challenged before or would like to challenge again?
I'm happy to play anybody, and I know my goal is to make it all the way through the tournament, so I know that it's just going to get tougher and tougher as it goes, and if I end up playing, I don't know, whoever, Dan or whatever like that, it's only a matter of time, I suppose. But the person who I've never played, and I think they've been announced at the tournament, I actually don't have that information in front of me, and it's 32 names, so I might be wrong. Have they announced Mark Riley for the tournament? Is he playing?
I don't know. Not been officially announced.
I don't know if he's.
I would imagine. I would be surprised if he wasn't, just because he was such a high prospect on the dead list.
This is not me announcing that he's in the tournament. This is me genuinely not knowing. But he's the one major singles competitor who's been around for a long time that I've never played. And I would love to play Mark Riley in singles once, at least. But then again, there's also a lot of more recent awesome competitors I've never played. I've never played Marisol, but of course she's probably, I think that's not even logistical at this point. She just got her number 1 spot. But I've never played Collins. I would love to play them. I would be terrified of playing them, but I would also love to play them because I think they'd be a great match. But yeah, of the veterans who've been around for a long time, Riley comes to mind. I don't know how things are going to work with this mini bracket that's going on right now, but at some point JTE and I need a rematch. So whether that's at the tournament or next year or whatever like that, I hope that comes together.
I love that. You have been a part of the Schmoedown for a very long time. There have been a lot of major players that are, like you said, Marisol, Adam Collins, that you have not had the opportunity to play against. How are you feeling about this rookie season coming into this year? And technically people in their sophomore season, like Robert Parker. How are you feeling about these last couple of rookies that are coming in?
Every rookie season is exciting to me because I think one of the most he's not announced. Riley is not announced for the tourney. I have no idea if Riley's going to be in the tourney, but if he is in, I'd love to play him. But regardless, wait, what was the question?
How are you feeling about the rookies coming into this season?
I think the rookies are one of the most important things about the Schmoedown. You can't have it be the same personalities every year, and I think we've done a remarkable job finding excellent talent in the last couple of seasons. My co-star right here is just only one example. But I think this rookie class is amazing. I really do. I'm looking at some of these rookies, people like Khan or Betty or Jacoby or Jacob or there's a million people I'm not even thinking of
Griffin
right now.
Newman.
Griffin Newman is excellent. Horowitz on my own faction. We've got in singles and teams, we've got an alarming number of really top flight players who could absolutely pull a Collins. Would not. If you told me I've come from the future, Jacoby Bancroft wins the tournament or Josh Horowitz wins the tournament, I'd be like, yeah, that tracks. Yeah, that I believe all of that. They're that good. So that's one of the things that I love is that it's actually been surprising to me a little bit just how dominant the vets have been this year. And that we had that whole little mini bracket of the new teams, and it ended up with the corruption winning it again, and ended up being a big rematch between us, because that easily could have been us versus Blackjack. That easily could have been us versus Danger Zone. That easily could have been us versus any other of those teams. So, yeah, you never know. But man, I'm really excited about these rookies. Took Blunden. I still am. If I played Blunden tomorrow, I would be just as worried, because it was close, and he had me there. That was a very close match. He had me for a minute there, and it was just I got lucky with the questions. That's all there is to it, because that is a very knowledgeable player, and it's someone who I know it's going to get complicated, next season with the international players. But if there's an opportunity, I think any faction would be wise to draft him.
That's very nice. Robert Parker, especially coming in from the fan leagues, how are you feeling with this new rookie class coming in with a new influx of people from the fan leagues coming in? You had a different class when you first started. Now there's a new class coming into this year. How do you feel about the people coming in from the fan leagues?
Yeah, I mean, they're all great. And I've also just known them for a long time. I knew that I've known Jacob Blunden since 2016. I've known Jacoby Bancroft since 2018, probably. So these are people that I've known for years and have known how capable they are, and I'm very excited to see them come in and do exactly what we knew they were capable of. And just run around and wreck shop, because I'm excited to see them, get their due and earn that. And, because some people come in and are unfairly, crowned before they even show up. I think both Bibbs and I can relate to that. And it's nice to see somebody live up to that hype, which I think, if not in wins and losses, but in gameplay, pretty much every rookie this season has.
Yeah.
I do have to say, as a big fan of the Schmoedown for a very long time, this has been a very interesting and respectful year for the Schmoedown. The growth and the challenge of doing things online, and the way that the Schmoedown has persevered through this entire season has been a very fun thing for me as a fan to watch. So I definitely want to thank both of you so much, Robert Parker, William Bibbiani, for contributing to this league, to this game as much as you do. The dedication that both of you all put into your gameplay, into your factions, with your managers and all of that is absolutely right there. You can totally see it. So again, thank you so much as a fan for both of y'all, Robert Parker, William Bibbiani.
I'm sure I speak for both of us when I say thank you for being such a part of this community, and thank you to the Belford who isn't with us for some reason, tech stuff. But thank you to you and all of the other hosts of these shows and everything, because the community is what makes this more than just a couple of people comparing trivia. That's the thing that makes this, I think, really, really extra special. And so thank you for having us on and taking it seriously like we do, and basically just sharing our love of it, and it just wouldn't be the same without you. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. So before we head out, I do want to ask one more question. If both of you could pick one retired player in your respective division, let's go ahead and say Robert Parker in the IG tournament and William Bibbiani in the teams division, retired teams or retired IG player. If you could play one person in that, in any match, maybe an exhibition and sort of that, who would you choose? I'm gonna go ahead and pick William. Okay, Robert Parker, you go first.
I know mine right away. I know. Sorry. Rachel Cushing in a Lord of the Rings match. Easily.
That would be a sight for sore eyes. I would pay a lot of money to see that match.
Or just an
I'm not gonna
Interhita
lie.
match. Just Rachel in general.
I would love to see that. I think that would be great. William Bibbiani.
Rachel Cushing. That was my first thought too. I never played her in singles. And I always wanted to. We played the Shire Wolves. I would love to play the Shire Wolves as Shazam. I think we'd have a better shot. But if that's off the table, because whatever, I guess the Patriots. I really do feel like, that's always the thing. It's like, well, were they better than the Patriots? And I'm like, I mean, we'll never know. It's like saying that, like, geez, was like. I'm trying to think of, like, was Oral Hershiser better than Babe Ruth? I'm like, I don't know. They weren't alive at the same time. You'll never know that. So it's one of those things where, like, it'd be cool to play the Patriots somehow, someday. But in singles or in like an exhibition match, we did like a classics exhibition match. Rachel Cushing is, as far as I'm concerned, really the apex predator of like the Schmoedown. That's like, it's Dan and her. Those are like the two legends that tower above us all. So yeah.
I am not here to argue against that at all, but I will say, for everyone from the Call to Action Network, thank you so much to the whole chat that has been hanging out with here tonight. Thank you so much to my dear great friends Robert Parker and William Bibbiani for being here with us tonight.
I got soaps. Thank you for putting it up. You know, thank you. Yeah, Saltcat Soap over on Etsy and on Twitter. We have a lot of soaps, and some of them are, well, they're all nice. So thank you, everybody.
That's right. So we're going to head out for the night for Mr. Belford, who is not here with us at the moment, but it's all good. For everyone at the Call to Action Network, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. Thank you so much for bringing me back on this Sunday night. I'm so happy to be back. This has been so great. Have a good night. Give your puppies a belly rub for me. You know how it goes, y'all. Later.